Good morning. It is April 11th, 2024, and I'm excited to welcome you to another Thursdays with EBSCO webinar session. This is a continuing series where one Thursday a month, I'm joined by reps from EBSCO's kind of higher ed division to talk to us about resources that they are excited about or want to share with our academic libraries here at WiLS. So to keep things short and on track, I am going to turn things over to Dan Henrick and Paula Brewster, who are here from EBSCO.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paula, of course, but glad to see you guys, and I'm happy you could join us today. Dan and I are always grateful for our customers in the WiLS group, and thank you, Jeff, for having us again. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the archives that EBSCO has available. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get started. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right. So Dan and I are going to share this presentation together, and so we'll be going back and forth. If you have questions about today's presentation, I'm going to send this PowerPoint to Jeff. And there are links that I embedded into this presentation. So if you wanted to click into those, you can get additional information from what you're going to see here on the slide deck. So to start off, we're going to start talking about our magazine archives, which is one of the things that you can utilize for the library, and it will be an opportunity to save shelf space, spend one-time money, and have some really wonderful content for your students. So they are available to enrich your students with historical content from these resources. As I mentioned, they save shelf space and they fill the gaps for missing issues. A lot of you know I was on the subscription services side for most of my career with EBSCO, and one of the real difficult things was when a magazine would disappear off the shelf, or it was damaged, or it never arrived. So this is a wonderful way for you to be able to fill gaps for missing issues. It gives your users a historical perspective of the last century. It eliminates trying to find those resources on the shelf. Again, it fills the gaps for missing issues, lost and damaged issues. And I know a lot of our libraries are trying to figure out how to best utilize the space that they have at the library. And some of them are having to give up space at the library. So this gives you more space for the things that you might need. It's a wonderful way to use one-time funding should that happen. We always hear from our libraries that, the budget's flat, and we understand that, but then voila, at the end of the year, you have some one-time money that might pop up that you need to spend. And that's when you get on the phone and call Dan, or you give him an email and let him know what you're looking for, because this is a fabulous way for you to be able to allocate funding for something that's really going to be helpful for your students in the future. And you get to enjoy the perpetual access to these magazine archives. And there is, of course, deep coverage back to the very first issue. And Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm getting out of breath.
Sure. Yeah, the use of the magazine archives, there's a lot that they can provide, and there's some content that's not as readily available in just the regular database versions of even the same titles in there. So business students, as they're looking to study trends, especially as we said back to the 21st or 20th century, when advertising really started to hit its stride and, marketing really came into fruition, how people, bought and sold content and advertised, it was, or content and products rather, it really changed that time in the century. So this is a great way for them to go through and research those changing trends over time by looking at the different advertisements and how things evolved over time. One of the examples I use is, how they used to advertise to women. It's very different now than it was in the 1950s and the 1960s. So you can really see that those trends evolve. It's same with communication and marketing students, how things, how are the messages being communicated? How are different groups communicating to different people? You can jump into the Ebony magazine archive and see how those advertisements and articles were written versus, time and life, kind of different target audiences over time and how those all evolved. It's same idea for political science students. You get great primary source articles. How are things being discussed about World War II during World War II? How are different sources talking about the same issues? Different groups writing articles on the same battles, the same reports, the same incidents. And sports science majors, a lot of things have changed over time. So you get a good retrospective on how decade to decade, different things are being talked about.
This is really just talking again about saving space in your library. It is one of those ways you can free up shelving and, take advantage of having space in the library if that should be a goal of yours. And this is also just showing you, I thought this was a kind of an interesting slide where it shows you how much actual footage you save with each of these collections in square footage for your library. And it is interesting. I hear this a lot from our customers on trying to figure out how to utilize the space for the library.
And just one thing to say about that, as you're considering, the 1,700, 3,000 issues of all those magazines, when you have them in print, you have one copy. When you have them in an archive, a digital archive from EBSCO, you have unlimited copies, unlimited simultaneous users that are all virtually indestructible.
So we're going to show you a few of the different archives that are available. Time from 1922 to 2000, U.S. News, 1926 to 1984, the Architectural Digest, 1923 to 2011. Oops, I missed one back there. Sorry about that. What was that one, Dan? Do you recall?
I thought it was Jet.
Okay, Jet, 1951 to 2014. Dan, you want to take the next one?
Sure, yeah, you can see all these here. Life, 1936 to 2000. People, 1974 up through 2000. And for most of these, content after the year 2000 is available in our databases, so you get the complete run. And for all of these, this is the start of publication. So when people began publication back in 1974, you get issues 1 all the way through everything in the year 2000. Ebony, one of our newer ones, 1945, when it started all the way up through 2014. A lot of great content in all of those. That's been a popular one since it came out. You can see all these Esquire, McLean's, The Atlantic, all great, great reporting over the 20th century. Vanity Fair, it looks like there's a content gap. They actually were out of publication, so there are no issues that you'd be missing between 1936 and 1983. And so there's not very many places you can go to find primary source reporting and stories from, the 1910s. And we've got several options. I mean, The Atlantic goes all the way back to 1857. So a lot of things have changed over time since that magazine's been in publication. Oh, and Moment is the most recent archive that we've released. We just added that this year. Another great selection here. All of these are super popular. The Nation, National Review, New Republic. These all cover political reporting from kind of different angles, some a little more left leaning, some a little more right leaning, but you can get a whole spectrum with EBSCO. And the art magazine collection is itself 3 whole magazine archives bundled together as one package. And if I can move this thing so I don't have to guess this last one, the magazine antiques, art news, and I think it was Art in America.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Yep, Art in America.
Art, do check me out.
Yep.
And we mentioned that it's a great resource for business students. Business Week, Forbes, and Fortune are, of course, 3 of the most popular, most in-demand titles. Some of this content is in Business Source, but with the archives, you can buy them and own them forever and get access to all of the advertisements and the charts that are all indexed and searchable within the archive itself.
For business schools, this is an important thing. So they can enter the DUNS number and they can search company information within Business Week, Forbes, and Fortune, which is important for those students. And now moving on, we have Time back to 1924, Life, 1938, Architectural Digest, People, and Fortune, and these are all wonderful for advertising. I don't know if you know this, but I used to sell radio advertising, and if you can answer this, Winston tastes good. You'll know that kind of advertisement went away on TV and radio back in the 70s. So it's, it just goes to show how things have changed over the years. Dan?
Sure.
You can take on gender studies, women's
right.
studies.
Yeah, we have a great variety of archives covering all topics, and especially if you get a package of archives, you can really get an interesting retrospective of how all these issues have been discussed over the 20th century. As I'm sure you all know, gender studies, LGBTQ plus studies, and how those things have been talked about in public media and mainstream media, if we're going to use that word. It has changed a lot, especially dating back from when some of these started publishing, back in the first part of the 20th century, 1940s, 1950s. All these issues are viewed very differently today, and you can quite literally see how things have progressed over time. Body image in the media, like I mentioned earlier, some of the advertising towards women, it's very different in a lot of these publications today than it was, even 10 years ago, but certainly 50 years ago.
Definitely. Political science studies the political events that happened, whether they were elections, wars, the political leaders, conventions, government policies. It probably was a whole lot more calm back then, although maybe they didn't think so at the time, but compared to today. But this is a great resource or great collection for political science. Ethnic and racial studies, for those students, here we have a way for them to dig into affirmative action, civil rights, discrimination, race relations, and societal racism. And, this is not just something that is going on today. It goes on for centuries before. So this is a wonderful way to do research on what was going on in this last century. So Jeff or Dan, would you like to follow up with this?
Sure. Yeah, this is just kind of an overview of how the magazine archives can really benefit, because there's a lot that they bring to the library other than, just popular reading content. Gives unique historical perspective on how different publications are communicating the same message or, different versions of the same story to their target readers, and how they're talking to their readers, how they're talking about other people in society. You can learn a lot about how all that's done. You get to eliminate all that time spent retrieving, fixing, ordering of shelving all the magazines. You won't have to worry about inventorying and replacing them, because you'll have them all in there in their digital perpetuity. You can eliminate all gaps. You don't have to, all that chart Paula showed about showing the linear space occupied by all these magazines. If you have every single one of these magazines, the whole run in print, you'll save hundreds and hundreds of feet of shelf space. So if you're trying to, find different uses for the library's footprint, this is a great way to offer some of these services without taking anything from your students. Great way to use one-time funding. We have many libraries who every year buy 1 or 2 archives because they know that that's something that's going to deliver value for them, and it helps them spend down their money, whatever's left over at the end of the year. If you've got, $5 or $50 or $500,000, that you just know you want to get something valuable, the archives are a great option for that. And of course, the coverage all goes back to the very first issue. And as we said, when you buy your archives from EBSCO, you own that content. So you don't have to worry about, renewing it. If that funding is there not next year, you're still going to get to keep it.
So now we're going to move into the next version of archives, which is called the Historical Digital Archives, which we've had with EBSCO for years now. So to get started, we're going to talk about African American Historical Serials Collection. Once you get this slide deck, you'll notice there are links, and those links are live. It'll take you right to that collection information. So the African American Historical Serials Collection is an archive of periodicals dating from 1829 to 1922, and it includes newspapers, magazines, reports, and annuals from African American religious organizations, including churches and social service agencies. It's developed in conjunction with ATLA, and is a complete, centralized, and accessible resource for formally fragmenting widely dispersed and endangered materials. And this information, it goes from 1829 to 1922. It has 170 unique titles related to African American life and culture, 60,000 pages of searchable primary content. And these links are live, so if you would like to pull a title list, you can do that right from the slide deck. And again, the coverage is 1829 to 1922. Dan?
Sure. So Arte Publico, it's Latinx, Hispanic focused content. And as Paula may have pointed out for the previous collection, the historic archives are a little different because they're not title by title, they're subject by subject, so you get multiple publications through each one. But Arte Publico, it's a series of publications of Hispanic history, literature, political commentary, and culture in the United States. So it is all U.S. focused, and there's it's mostly Spanish language content in this collection, but it's about 20% English language too. So for a student studying Spanish, it gives them a great way to practice some of that. For Spanish speakers, of course, it's an excellent resource. But with the Google Translate embedded into EBSCOhost, they'll be able to see real-time translations for all this anyway, even if they can't speak Spanish. So yes, Arte Publico Collection 1. It pulls most of its content from, as you can see here, the U.S. Hispanic Literary Heritage Project. So it's something that we did in partnership with them to bring the content to you. With all the archives, you can get a variety of sources. So advertisements, books, monographs, editorial essays, but lots of periodicals and newspapers. So you get across the timeline in the series, you get access to all of this, a broad set of different resources. So just so you can see how, again, different groups are talking about different things at the time. It's a lot of content packed in here, over 60,000 historical articles, over 1,000 historical books of Hispanic literature and culture, and the colonial times up to 1960, and linked title lists will be included in this. Series 2 of Arte Publico it's just an extension of it, and we split them up because having them split into 2 series makes them more approachable and for cost. Buy one collection one year, buy the second collection the following year if you like it, which most people do. This is a slightly different set of resources in there. It's the same kinds of tools that you get, or the same kinds of resources, just different ones, different publications, different timelines for the same publications. Again, it's about 80% Spanish language content, 20% English language, but great resources to get different perspectives. A lot of research, especially done in America, it's based on, it's English language. People grew up, a lot of it is white America doing the reporting. So it's great to have primary sources for how different groups are talking about, the same issues, what their perspective on the current events of the times.
And that's what is included in this resource. Letters, speeches, periodicals, newspapers, etc. So that's all included in this particular archive. And content includes 3,000 issues of rare and historical newspapers and issues, 250,000 pages of personal and organizational manuscript content, and colonial times to 1960. And again, you can pull a title list right from here.
And we kind of mentioned for the magazine archives that some of those titles are in EBSCO databases. Most of these are not. So most of the historical archives are unique. They're very niche kinds of resources that you get. So it's a great way to get new and different content.
The next one is Atla Historical Monographs Collection, and there are 11 series of this. It provides history and religious studies with over 10 million pages and 29,000 documents focused on religion, religious thought, and practice. Here are the 11 series, and these are all links that you can click into to learn more information about each one of these 11 resources. So that would be a great way to pull those specific documents.
And for the Atla collections, each of those collections are themselves collections of many different periodicals. There was a lot of legwork done in putting these collections together, diving into church attics to find publications of, the newspapers those churches publish. So it's not only religious content, but content produced by religious organizations. And these are available as individual collections, or you can get the whole collection at a discounted price. So you'd have the one big archive of all 11 collections.
Thank you for adding that.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, Chinese monographs of the 20th century, as you see there. It was 1900 1949, a pivotal time for Chinese American history. Like all the other ones, we did. There's a lot of legwork gone into building this collection out to get a wide sampling of periodicals and content types and publications to really talk about, to really address, how this population was talking about things in their own words from their own perspective, across the years. Over 120,000 books in there. That's a whopper. That's a lot of collection, 20 million pages, and over 6 billion searchable Chinese characters.
Wow.
So there's images, bibliographies, all kinds of good stuff in there. As with all EBSCO products, you can really drill down and to get into the specifics of exactly what you're looking for, publication type, publication date range, including a wide variety of subjects. So all from the perspective of those publications, philosophy, religion, social sciences, politics, especially, very hot these days. But back then, you'll note there were some very important wars that were fought during this time frame. So you can see how those are being talked about. Leaps and bounds done in science and technology from 1900 to 1945. Culture and arts, all great stuff that you can search and again, own that content in perpetuity. And there it is again, the 120,000 full text books and the 50 years of coverage.
And Dan, you're doing so well describing this. I want you to go on and do the rest of it.
Sure. Okay. The Civil War primary source documents. Civil War primary source documents is it's information from both sides of the war, which I think will appear on a later slide. But there is just so much stuff in here. There are letters to and from soldiers back home, and letters to soldiers, how they were talking about it. Different publications, what was the Union Army saying, about around the time of this battle? What's the Confederate Army saying around this time of the battle? This is just a great collection that talks about a lot of content and primary source materials from the Civil War. I think there's more on this one. Yep. Extensive correspondence from both Confederate and Union troops. Diaries too. I mean, you can see in their own words how the soldiers were experiencing the war. Hand-drawn illustrations and maps. I'm sure you've looked at maps from back then, but they're usually pretty close to how things are. Not quite accurate, but that's how they were seeing them at the time and their understanding. Engineering notebooks, military content. So, the Civil War is a very popular research topic, and having information on how the different militaries were perceiving things, what their plans were. And of course, you can learn in retrospect how those plans went. Just a lot of great stuff. Letters by Ulysses S. Grant. I mean, we get all the important stuff in there. So over 110,000 pages from 400 individual collections. Again, a lot of legwork gone into building these and getting the high quality images scanned and indexed, searchable by date range and everything in there. European views of the Americas. This one, I think this might be in Badger Link. I can't recall, but this is a little bit of a niche one. Well, as it says, European views of the Americas. I'm sure you are all well aware that America was basically, it started as a European endeavor, at least as it exists now. Of course, there was a long history of America before the Europeans found it, but this is kind of how it was being discussed up from the time that they kind of landed here and started mucking around up through the conclusion of the collection. So as you can see here, you get a wide variety of publications from different viewpoints, British, French, and Dutch. Here we go. Subjects include the British in America, the Dutch in America, Jesuits, the French. And as you imagine, the slave trade is very well covered in here.
What about the pirates?
The pirates of the
interesting.
Americas. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in here. And when we talk about the Europeans discovering America, we all know there were already people who had been living here for thousands of years, but this is discovery as they saw it. So, in hindsight, we know that these discoveries were, there were some ethical questions there, but you can at least see in their own words and from their own perspective how they were thinking of these things, and maybe make some of your own judgments about the morality of it all. So 32,000 records from 1493 up through 1750. So that is a wide range. Another one, the Frick Art Reference Library Periodicals Index. We can kind of, I know we're running up on the half hour here, so we can kind of click through this one pretty quickly. But this is from the Frick Art Reference Library, over 300 index periodicals, covers date from 1850 through the 1960s. So a great, one of the less expensive ones that you can get with us, but a great archive to provide great content for art reference as a retrospective. Gateway to North America, again, a great America-focused collection. As you can see here, a lot of this is from publications based out of New York. But again, a 19th century primary source collection. It's hard to find that kind of stuff on the open web, especially, searched and indexable and readily available for consumption as you can get with these collections. So learning about all these things, this is a great place to do it. Illustrate advertisements, yearbooks, annuals, tax lists, vital records, burial lists. There's a lot included in here that you can use to augment your collection for American primary sources in the 19th century. 800,000 pages of content across 1,500 sources. Nothing to sneeze at. Yes, and the Wilson retrospective subject indexes, there's a few of these. Applied Science and Business Periodicals retrospective and Applied Science and Technology Index retrospective. You'll get these in the PowerPoint when we send them out, so you'll be able to drill in a little bit more. But each
They're
of these,
all linked.
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, each of these covers quite a wide variety of time, or rather a spectrum of time across each of their subjects. We have
Quite
a lot of
few
people.
of these.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's a lot of them, and we have a lot of folks who have bought these over the years. And you could buy them all as a package if you're interested. The Revolutionary War era orderly books. This is, as you can see, the Revolutionary War focus between 1748 and 1817. Mostly books, but you do get a wide variety of sources in here. Again, content from different perspectives in the same time period, so you can see how the Americans who were, what do we call them? The loyalists, the Americans who wanted to remain British, and the Americans who wanted to be just Americans. They had their publications going concurrently. And so you can see how different groups were talking about the different things, the taxation. How did different groups perceive the Tea Party incident? Did some people think that these were just hooligans, or did some people think they were heroes? There were a wide variety of perspectives, even back then. But yes, and you may have seen on the previous screen that it does cover the War of 1812 as well, as it's in that date range there. So yeah, a lot of content, 30,000 pages of primary source materials, handwritten volumes. The archives, as I've probably said a dozen times now, they're great collections for primary sources. This just highlights the digital archive viewer, so you can go through and browse page by page through any given document and see the whole thing. Every single image in here is indexed and searchable, so you can drill down in through the advanced searching to get, are you looking for advertisements? Are you looking just for images? Are you looking just for manuscripts? What date range are you looking for? Which archives do you want to search? You can get this nice feature where you hover over a certain part of the image to really zoom in and get a good look at all the details in there. Then you can do this on your laptop, on your phone, on a tablet, on a PC, on a Mac. Works well on everything.
So this is something we wanted to also share with you, and that is, by the way, the end of our archive presentation. So thank you for taking part in looking through all of the slides, and feel free to click into some of that information once you get the PowerPoint. But we wanted to make sure that we have an upcoming demo. And Dan, do you want to talk a little bit more about Prep Step and what we're working on for the rest of the the contract year for BadgerLink?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of you may have heard by now that BadgerLink is not planning to continue their subscription to Learning Express Library. They sent out a notification about this maybe in early March or so. So we are partnering with WiLS to offer 30% off of any new Learning Express products. Learning Express is a company. They make the Learning Express library product. But for colleges and universities and two-year schools, we have Prep Step, which is designed just for college students to help them get the resources they need. It gives you all the resources that you have right now through Learning Express Library and a bunch more that will better meet your needs. So we're offering 30% off of Prep Step. We also have a bunch of other products made by Learning Express, including a new one, the AMA micro courses, the American Management Academy teamed up with EBSCO to build this great resource. So you get 30% off of any of those. And if you want to buy a package, you get an extra discount. So if you want to see pricing on those, reach out to Jeff, reach out to WiLS, send me an email, give me a call. We can get you into that group that we're forming through WiLS. And we do have some demos coming up on the 23rd and 24th of Thursday. Paula sent out an email a couple weeks ago where you can register. You can register through this link on the PowerPoint as well, but definitely jump in and check it out so you know all about the stuff in Prep Step. And frankly, if you're not aware of what's in Learning Express, you want to know what's in there that you are going to lose July 1st when that access discontinues. So let us know if you have questions about Prep Step, about Learning Express. If you can't make either of these dates, we can set up a separate demo for you. You can get a free trial of Prep Step. We can do it all. So if you have questions about Prep Step, Learning Express, or any of the archives, you want quotes for any of those or trials, you can reach out to Jeff at WiLS, or to me or to Paula, and we are happy to help with anything you need.
Yep, thank you. And I might add, if you register for either one of these presentations that are posted here, I will send you the recording if you can't attend. So just go to the site and register. If you would like me to send you another kind of invitation for this presentation, either for Tuesday or Thursday, just let me know and I'm happy to do that. So this is us, Dan Henrick and Paula Brewster with Jeff Brenner. We would sure like to hear from you if you have any questions about archives, and if you are interested in learning more about pricing or want more information, we're here to help. And as you know, Dan and I are a team. I'm out driving around in my Escape in Wisconsin, and Dan, I always like to tell people, is chained to his desk in New Hampshire. Jeff is floating around in Wisconsin as well. So, you know, feel free to let us know if there's anything we can do to help you as you're navigating through your EBSCO resources. We're really happy to help, and we really appreciate it when you do contact us.
Thanks so much, Dan and Paula. I'm always really excited when we talk about the archives collections. I'm a history major, you know, whenever that was 30 years ago or whatever, when I went to college. Well, maybe not that long, but I'm always like, oh, I wish I had access to this kind of stuff when I was in one of those programs. You know, I was in a women's studies, women's history class. It would have been fantastic to be able to do a paper comparing and contrast, like Dan said, comparing and contrasting advertising that was directed toward women, you know, in the 50s versus the 70s versus the 90s, right? That would have been great. and you know, any of those kind of popular magazine collections would have been tremendous for that. And that's one tiny use case from one person, you know, 25 years later. So I can only imagine the depths and the amazing kind of support these kind of resources could be in all sorts of disciplines, well beyond just history. So anyway, like I said, I always go when you guys talk about the archive collections. So I haven't seen any questions come in, but I'll reiterate what Paula said. Please reach out to any of us here. You know, I'm happy to be a first point of contact. But I will likely defer any in-depth questions to Dan or Paula if it's about content or things like that, but I'm always happy to put you in touch with them as well. You've seen Dan and Paula's contact information. It'll also be in the follow-up email. If you're watching the recording, you will have seen their contact information in the email that got you this recording. So please take a look at that as well and let us know how we can help. Thanks so
thank
much,
you,
Dan and
everybody.
Paula, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you
And,
so much.
We hope to hear
Jeff.
from you soon.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Have a great rest of your day. Bye,
You
everyone.
too.
All right. Bye, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.